I work in and on the surrounding woods of an army base, and I've got some experiences you might be interested in. The forest is mostly made up of pine trees, and there's also replicated villages where the soldiers train scattered throughout. Some of them are over 35 miles out, and most of the roads are gravel or dirt. These are 3 of the scariest things that have happened to me. The Ghost in Youngstown. I was working in one of the villages about 25 miles from the base. My coworker Donald was telling me about an employee from the company I work for, who had apparently ended himself in one of the buildings by hanging himself from a ceiling fan. The building was made to look like a clinic complete with hospital beds and a reception desk. As soon as I walked into that building the first time, I felt something. It didn't feel malicious or evil, but something about it was wrong. I wasn't scared at first, but I was very uncomfortable. My anxiety quickly rose, and I began to feel depressed even. I wanted to leave, but I had work to do. But I had to go ahead and finish the work order. I had to replace 3 of the doors there. The first 2 work orders were in the back of the clinic, but the third was the door to the entrance of the hanging room, as my coworkers called it. The second my foot crossed the threshold of that room, my uneasiness worsened. Come on, man. It'll only take 7 minutes at the most, I reminded myself. Did you say something? Donald asked as he entered the clinic to check on my progress. It was nothing, I replied. I'm sure he noticed my troubled behavior, but he didn't mention it. All right, come help me when you're finished, he quipped before walking out of the door. He seemed unaffected by the aura in the room. I lit a cigarette, and I started to install the doorknob. It was a tight fit, and I ended up having to hammer it in with a rubber mallet. As I reached for the other knob, I heard the distinct sound of rattling metal hitting the floor. What the heck? I said aloud. There was no way the knob fell by itself. I felt my anxiety reaching its peak. I could feel eyes on me. I was alone, yet someone was there with me. Hello? Anyone there? I whimpered out. Then I stood up, facing towards the ceiling fan. My nose started burning from the smoke coming from my cigarette, still perched between my lips. I took a long drag. The sound of approaching footsteps in front of me caught my attention. I looked up at the fan and breathed out. When I did, the smoke seemed to spread out drastically about 6 inches in front of my face, as if there was someone's face in front of me that I could not see. I could almost see the smoke revealing facial features. I think he's still there, the man who took his own life. He's trapped. His pain and sorrow still linger in the clinic. Sometimes they follow. A very large number of people say that they've seen strange things or creatures, or have been followed through the woods by something they cannot see around here. I'll say I've only caught glimpses of this creature or creatures, or have found evidence of them lurking in the woods. At first, I thought it was just one, but as time has passed, I'm beginning to believe there are perhaps more than one of them. The first piece of evidence came in the form of a footprint. I found it in a village called Jetertown. There was only one. It was in a patch of mud. The first thing I noticed was it was big around 16 inches. Then I noticed that there were 6 digits, and there was even webbing between the toes. I asked my coworker about this, and he said he saw them on occasion, and that I should expect the same. The second piece of evidence came in the form of 2 carcasses, or at least what was left of them. We were on a gravel road, and we were coming to a low water crossing, when we noticed something at the edge of the water. We pulled up to the crossing and got a morbid surprise. All over the road were shredded pieces of what was once a deer and a wild hog. The deer's innards were on the ground. The head was gone. The hog's head was gone too, as well as its limbs. It was a mess. It didn't look like the work of a starving animal, but more like the work of an animal who wanted to slaughter something. The final proof I received was the first sighting I had. Whatever it wasn't natural. My coworker Justin and I were in a village called Carnus, replacing a set of steps to the imitation police station. I had just cut a board for one of the steps when we both heard what sounded like a voice calling for help. "Hey, did you hear that?" Justin asked. "Yeah," I replied. We stopped what we were doing and listened. "Help me." A voice came from behind the tree line. Something wasn't right about this voice, though. It sounded like "help me" was being repeated on loop. It was filled with static as if it was being spoken through a speaker from a radio. "Let's go find out where that's coming from," Justin said. "That's a bad idea, Justin. Something doesn't seem right about this," I retorted. "Help me." The voice came again, the same tone and same pitch, except it was far closer. We both froze. It came from behind a large red oak tree less than 10 yards away. It wasn't much longer before we actually saw it. The thing peeking around the tree, staring at us. It looked like a hairless lemur, but it was bigger, about 4 feet tall, and it had these long fangs protruding from the bottom jaw. Its skin looked like it was charred. It was black and seemed to be falling off in places. Justin, do you see this?" "Yeah, I see it," he said. The creature opened its mouth and released a sound like a child laughing. It stepped out from behind the tree and dropped to all fours, its disgusting, rotting tail whipping back and forth. "Get in the truck. Now. Come on, Justin." It ran at us at an unnatural speed. We ran for the truck and got in, locking it right as the creature began to claw at the side of the truck. We started it and drove away as the thing continued to follow the truck, but we eventually lost it. We hauled tail out of there. I've seen those things since, but only at a distance. I don't know what it is, but it's aggressive and very obviously dangerous. Stairway to Oblivion. This is perhaps the most unnerving thing I've seen since I started the job. If you've read I Am a Search and Rescue Officer from the subreddit No Sleep on Reddit, then you've probably heard of the stairs. I can confirm that crap like that happens out in these woods, but it makes more sense out here, as fake buildings come and go for the Army's purposes, but they're still quite creepy. The first sets of them come at least 15 or so miles into the woods. Some are dilapidated and in ruins, but some look brand new and are complete with carpet. Those are the ones that don't make any sense, because there's never any dirt or debris on them, and as you walk closer to these brand new looking ones, the forest around you will go quiet. It's less like they just happen to be in a remote part of the forest, but more like the wildlife avoids them entirely. The first time I saw them, I didn't know what to think. I was actually on my way home from work. When I go home from my job, I take a route through the woods. I travel down gravel roads and dirt trails to get home. I was driving down a trail when a deer ran out in front of me. I managed to swerve around it, but I ended up bottoming out in the ditch. I cursed to myself. I looked up to see that deer standing at the edge of the trail staring at me. I thought it was strange, but where I work, deer hunting is prohibited, so the deer don't really care about people. I got out of my truck to check for any damages. Luckily, the damage was minimum. I called a friend to pull my truck out, and I noticed a structure about 100 yards into the thicket. I only noticed the top of it at first, but as I drew closer, I began to realize what it was. The heck is this doing out here? I wondered. I've never noticed it before, and as far as I knew, there had never been any fake villages or towns here. I stood about 50 yards away from the staircase. It consisted of 12 steps with beige siding and red carpet running up the steps. It was pristine, as if it was just built that day. As I stood there, awestruck, I began to feel anxiety all over me. However, I moved closer. Somehow I was compelled to move towards it, like it was telling me to come closer. I stopped 10 feet away from it and noticed something weird. It was quiet, dead silent. My anxiety began to skyrocket. I felt like I shouldn't be there. I stepped a little closer and reached my hand out to touch it. I didn't want to, but I felt like I had to, or something bad would happen. I tried to move, but my legs and feet would not respond. Then I heard a voice yelling my name from the trail behind me. It was the friend that I had called. My name being called was just enough to snap me out of that trance. I trudged back through the thicket and exited the tree line. My friend had a look of relief on his face. "The heck were you, dude?" he asked. "I've been calling you for 20 minutes straight now." "What do you mean?" I replied. "I couldn't have been gone for more than 7 minutes tops. Besides, there's this weird staircase out there in the middle of the woods. You should see it." He followed me back to where the stairs were, but it was clear. There was nothing where the stairs once were. It was as if it was never there, just a small clearing with colorful flowers scattered throughout the area, but no stairs. "Come on, man," my friend said as he patted me on the back. "Let's get your truck moving and get out of here." I was confused. Did I imagine that whole thing? It seemed so real. I would get my answer a few weeks later when a coworker and I found a set on a different trail, another set of stairs. I asked him about it then, and he said that he didn't really know much about them, except that other people have seen them. They've been seeing them for as long as they could remember, before the army base was even here. It's this sort of unexplained strangeness that's the scariest to me. Because what does it mean?